It is Saturday, 13th of February 2021. I remember 20 years ago, at the time of the events of 9/11, thinking to myself that if the official account of what had gone on, as it was presented to us in the mainstream news, had been put out there as the plotline to some Hollywood movie, people would be leaving the cinema saying to each other, "What did you think of the film?" "Well, it was all right, but I mean the plotline, come on, it was a bit far-fetched." And imagine if the official narrative of 9/11 had been presented to the CEO of, let's say, Universal Pictures by some intern as the basis for a potential upcoming film. Imagine the conversation. "Sir, I've got a brilliant idea for a movie that we could put out. It involves 19 Arab hijackers armed with box cutters being directed by a man on a dialysis machine hiding out in a cave in Afghanistan. And the hijackers have trained at these little flying schools, flying little single-engine Cessnas, and they take over the airliners, get into the cockpit, overpower the crew, and on two of the planes, they fly them into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York, and they crash them into the side of the building. The buildings catch fire, there's these massive explosions, and through the sheer temperature of the fire, the buildings collapse into their own footprints. And not only that, but there's another building, World Trade Center 7, which doesn't even get hit by a plane, but it catches fire, and that too collapses into its own footprint. And not only that, you've got a BBC reporter standing in front of the building who announces 23 minutes before it collapses that it's going to, and then it actually does on live TV, and then the BBC scrubs all that footage so no one can ever see it again. And with two of the other planes, the hijackers fly one of them into the side of the Pentagon, and it's an area of the Pentagon where nobody's really working, it's being refurbished, so there's no real casualties, but they do that anyway, and there's no CCTV footage because all the cameras just happen not to be working that day. And then with the fourth plane, some of the passengers overpower the hijackers and they cause the plane to crash into a field, and it kind of goes into a crater and just gets obliterated, and there's no trace left of it. What do you think of that as the basis of a new film, sir? Well, what do you think the CEO would say to the intern? "Get out of here, you're wasting my time, stop being so bloody ridiculous." Well, there's applications here to the COVID scamdemic as well, of course. If at any point in 2019 somebody had gone into a pub wearing a face mask, what do you think the landlord would have said to him? You know, you walk up and you order a pint of beer through your muzzle. "Hello, could I have a pint of carding, please?" The landlord is highly likely to have said, "What's with the face mask, buddy? You know, do you think you could lower the mask? I can't really hear you, and a few of the people are getting a bit, unsettled by you wearing the face mask. Do you think you could, remove it?" Fast forward 1 year, you walk into a pub without a bit of cloth obliterating half your face, a fear muzzle, and now you're the odd one. Now people are looking at you suspiciously and thinking, "Why is that guy not wearing a face mask? He's making me feel very unsettled." And yet, if you told somebody in 2019 that we would be living this way, they wouldn't have believed you. Similarly, if you were asked to come up with the most absurd, ridiculous plotline for a movie surrounding a supposed pandemic, what are the most ridiculous, extreme measures that you could think of that a government could introduce that just defy all logic, all credibility, all common sense, all justice, all reason? Well, you might have that government telling people how many people they can have in their house, at what time, whether or not they can go and see their mother or their granny, whether or not they can open up the business that they've spent their entire lives building up, whether or not they can go out for a coffee or a beer, or go to the cinema, or go to the gym, or get in their car and go out for a drive somewhere, whether or not they can go on holiday. And then, if you'd introduced measures such as people having to register an address that they're going to be staying at when they come into the country after travelling in from overseas, and then telling those people that they've got to stay in their house for 10 days, They can't go out. They might be tracked and traced to make sure they've not gone out anywhere that they're not supposed to. If you told other people coming back from certain destinations that they have to quarantine in a prison hotel with guards outside the door making sure they can't leave, and they have to stay in that room for 10 days and 10 nights, and if they lie about what countries they've been to, what territories they've passed through, they could be fined up to £10,000 and have a sentence of 10 years in jail. What do you think people would have made of this set of rules, regulations, a year ago? If you presented this as the basis for a movie, people would have said, that's ridiculous, you can't be serious. You really think people are going to swallow that and accept that as the plotline for a movie? Here we are. Welcome to 2021, when in all seriousness, we are being told that you can get a jail term of up to 10 years for lying about what country you've been to. Not that it's anybody else's business where you've travelled anyway, because we have God-given rights and freedoms, freedom of movement, freedom of assembly, freedom of bodily integrity, and so many other rights which are inherent to creation. Murderers and rapists and serial killers get less. Prisoners are allowed out once or twice a day, as I understand it, for exercise. They're not kept in for 10 days and 10 nights straight and told you cannot leave the room. And all of this being delivered in all seriousness on the basis of keeping us safe. And delivered, again, in all seriousness by a bloated, overprivileged, overfed Etonian twat who is as out of touch with the regular lives of the British public as it's possible to get.
Yes, 3 weeks to flatten the curve, and yes, we'll just throw another 49 weeks on top of that, just to be sure. Yes, we're just doing it to keep you safe and protect you from the virus. I went to Eton, you know, did I mention that? And also the Bullingdon Boys Club at Oxford University. Yes, one of our favourite things to do there was we liked to burn £20 notes in front of homeless tramps. It was such a spiffing wheeze, teasing them in that way. And also we used to trash restaurants, and then our daddies would get sent the bill and they'd just pay it. David Cameron went to Eton as well, you know, and you know what he did with a pig's head at one of our parties. It was a spiffing wheeze.
This is the guy that is telling you when you can and can't go out of your house and who you can have in and whether you can open your business. And people are taking this. It is truly unbelievable. And things have gone way beyond the point of this becoming a farce. I mean, it really feels like we're living in some kind of surreal Monty Python-esque sketch. And at any moment, the director is going to call cut, and we'll realise that we've been surrounded by actors and the whole thing has just been a big pantomime. And we're told, aren't we, so many times that we're living in a movie. We're unwitting participants in a Truman Show type film, and we don't realise it. And what we get told is that it's being done so that people can wake up. It's to wake up the masses. We're told you can't just tell people how evil and sick and corrupt and criminal the control system is. You have to show them. They have to experience it. And so here we are in a movie that none of us agreed to, having to put up with it anyway. Well, I would say this is a movie that has long outstayed its welcome. It goes on and on and on. It makes Lawrence of Arabia look like a 5-minute filler. And everyone is just begging the end credits to roll because we're sick and fucking tired of this so-called movie. You know, it reminds me of an album that was put out in 1995 by a Belfast DJ and producer by the name of David Holmes. And it was called This Film's Crap, Let's Slash the Seats. And that's how I feel about this particular movie. And we get told from certain quarters that it's all about waking people up and, you know, they've got to be shown how bad things are. So at what point does it get decided that as many people that are ever going to wake up already have? Here we are, a year in to this absurd farce, being told things like you can get 10 years in jail and a £10,000 fine for lying on a bit of paper about where you've been. A few months ago, there was a story out of Denmark, I think it was, that people were being urged to kill their pets, their pet cats and dogs, because it had been discovered that COVID could be transmitted through animals. So in all seriousness, people were being told you've got to kill your pets. We're now being told that they're introducing anal swabs. So you bend over and take it up the arse. I mean, can it get any more symbolically mocking than that? So how can there possibly be anyone at this stage in the game who hasn't yet woken up, who is still going to? And what more do they think it's going to take to cause people to wake up? How can there be anyone that has lived through all this the past 12 months and one day is going to go, hey, wait a minute. This whole COVID thing is a big scam. I can see it now. I see it so clearly. Anyone who has not yet woken up to the truth of the fact that this is a massive psyop scam devised to rid us of all our God-given rights and freedoms and put us into a totalitarian communist regime being rolled out all around the world is beyond all hope and redemption. And if the idea is to drag this movie out for as long as it takes to wake up everyone, the vast majority of the masses, well, at the current rate, I can see that being achieved somewhere in the next 500 to 1,000 years. So if we're lucky, our children's 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 children might just benefit from this dynamic if we all stay on the path. The very fact that people are still believing a word that comes out of that fat, bloated, overprivileged, overfed Etonian twat and his sidekick, Twat Wancock, who clearly models himself on Tony Blair from the way he speaks, the way he conducts himself, and the fact that he's a traitor. I mean, Twat Wancock and Tony Blair deserve each other, and I sincerely hope that they end up in the same place where they can enjoy each other's company on an ongoing basis. But who, at this stage in the game, is possibly yet going to wake up and come out of their mind-controlled slumber? If the idea has been to wake up as many people as possible by making them experience this totalitarian dystopian nightmare, then the point at which as many were going to wake up would have done was several months ago, I would suggest. I don't know what more they could do to make it any more obvious that none of this is about keeping us safe from a virus. I can imagine people in orange suits in a Stasi gulag, surrounded by razor wire, with guards in the watchtowers with machine guns trained on them, and their children have been forcibly taken away from them, and they're still saying, well, at least they're keeping us safe from the virus. They've got to do this. If they came out and said to people, to stop the spread of the virus, you've got to kill yourself and your family, there would be people going, well, the government says we've got to do it, so I'm just going to go and off granny. And you notice the eugenicists that are pushing for population reduction, they never lead by example, do they? Bill Gates, we got to reduce the population. There's just too many people. Well, you first then, Bill. Show us how it's done. You go and hang yourself, and you'll serve as an example to everyone else for what they need to do. In the interest of balance, though, I got sent another email by a friend this week. It's another one I want to read out. I won't give the friend's name because they probably wouldn't appreciate it. But he made some very good points. And as I say, in the interest of fair balance, if we assume for a moment that there might just be forces working behind the scenes to try and counter the evil, the darkness, the tyranny that's all too apparent in our lives now. Just suspend disbelief and credibility for a moment and assume speculatively that this might be the case. So I'll read out what this friend had to say because I think he made some very good points, and just in the interest of keeping everything in perspective. Just imagine the biggest boil you have ever seen, so monstrous and full of pus that it beggars belief, reaching so deep into the hearts of men and women, a cancerous poison that is slowly killing humanity. The sheer scale and size of the elite's operations must be borne in mind. Every government, from the top to the bottom, town councils even, not forgetting the narcopaths that beat their wives, husbands and children, are all fully complicit in the evil agenda that has taken place over the world. Given that we've become predisposed as truthers to know the true nature of this agenda, always wondering how such evil can ever be overcome, what with the military, the police, the judiciary, the political, and not forgetting the crony mainstream media, all in cahoots with each other, working their despicable ways through blackmail, honeypots, compromise, all for the pure joy they get from inflicting pain on others, the duper's delight. Remember Matt Hancock laughing the other week when he talked about the rolling out of the vaccines? A psychopath's wet dream. Forgetting America for a moment, just think how deep the cesspool is within the UK, and magnify that incumbent to 95% of governments, royals and elite scum worldwide. An operation to bring them all to justice is massive. This has supposedly been happening behind the scenes for years. It has to be incredibly well documented. I'm thinking the big reveal, if there's ever going to be one, must happen with the release of information concerning the extent of the paedophilia and its filthy habits, even to blow the lid off the corruption. Fraud and skullduggery will only wake up some people. We know it implicitly. Others know it, but don't really give a shit. But kids, babies and young adults, and the abuse that's been going on there will really open people's minds. What with Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, etc., with so many proven connections to the scumbag elite, including Bill Gates, by the way, who is documented to have been on the Epstein Lolita Express, that nice man that wants to save us all with his vaccines, you know. This could be a key to Pandora's box of horrors. We know they have the evidence to convict these entities. And he concludes by saying, still, something has to happen soon. Many people are close to breaking point. I've noticed. The agonies being inflicted on us must be brought to justice. So some fair points made there, I feel. Are there forces working behind the scenes to expose the evil, the darkness, to bring down the criminal cabal? I don't know. I've been back and forth on it for months, as viewers will well know. As have many of you, because I get emails every week telling me that people have been wavering and, going in and out of faith and hope themselves in terms of anything good happening out there. As I've said many times before, I do see some anomalies. I do see some unexplained things going on. So whenever you feel like it's hopeless and the New World Order master plan is fully in place and nothing can stop it, you still have some questions to answer. You know, where's the real Joe Biden? It's not him. Why was the inauguration and the first interview that was put out this week, apparently since his presidency, why was it said to have been filmed in the White House, but it was clearly done on a film set? And many other unanswered questions. So it remains confusing, it remains perplexing, it remains exasperating. But as my friend pointed out in what he had to write there, this cannot continue for much longer either way. Just want to mention that in this past week I did an interview with John Smith of Common Law Court in the UK, continuing the theme of practical solutions through the common law system to free ourselves from enslavement and tyranny. I've got another interview along similar lines coming up very soon with Jackie Phoenix. That's going to be taking place next week. And that will be a trilogy of shows that I've done. The first one with Christopher James, talking about common law solutions. Because that's what I'm trying to achieve with the shows that I put out. I'm trying to focus on ways in which we can empower ourselves to get ourselves out of the situation that we've been plunged into. There are many of us who don't deserve to be living under tyranny and slavery because we've taken the personal responsibility for discovering truth and living in right action. Unfortunately, the vast majority haven't, and we're being lumped in with all of them and held in collective punishment together. So it falls on us who are already doing the work, who are already putting our necks on the line, to continue doing even more to emancipate ourselves and everyone else along with us. Because that's unfortunately the dynamic that we find ourselves in within. Every day is like a battle. Every day is a fight for freedom. Unfortunately, we have no other choice because our choices have been taken away from us. So watch out for the upcoming interview with Jackie Phoenix next week. The one with John Smith is already on the YouTube and the BitChute. I hope this message has resonated and made sense to a large number of people out there. It's how I'm feeling about things right now. And that's why I do these videos. And I'll catch you for the next one whenever the time is right. Cheers for now.